Well, hello, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening somewhere out there in the world. This is Real Talk with E.V.E. And what is going on in the world, but most of all, what's going on in the state of Indiana. We want to talk about that. And for those of you that don't know, I am an advocate for school choice. I don't know if you guys can see this shirt. I also represent in the Northwest Indiana region with my school options. And we have a great guest coming up. I brought him a couple months on here, and he wants to bring the latest, as we say, breaking news. And let me bring him up. Without further ado, we have Cesar Roman right here. Buenos dias, buenas tardes.
Hola, Eve. How are you? How is
I'm
everything?
good. Everything has just been so crazy busy. It's been a crazy morning already. And, hey, that's life, right? Crazy good.
No, as you can see, I'm on the road as well, so I totally
Yeah,
get
I get
it.
it. You're driving from north to south, east, and west, right?
All over, all over the wonderful Hoosier state, 92 counties, up and down, north, south, east, west. Yes.
Wonderful. Well, you get yourself around for sure. And I'm sure you get to meet a lot of people because of what you do. And you are the Director of Community Engagement for IQE. And what does IQE stand for?
Yeah, the Institute for Quality Education, we're a statewide non for profit policy and advocacy organization that supports families in making a school choice. So we believe that families should have options and choices when it comes to education so that they can be able to fill the unique learning styles and needs of their children. We believe that families should be involved in the conversation of education and should be advocates for their children and their communities. And so the Institute for Quality Education has been around some 30 plus years as an organization, always looking to provide options and choices in education for children. We began in Indianapolis as a scholarship organization and have since really have focused on all things school choice. And when I mean school choice, Eve, I mean supporting families in making a school choice option. And if that's our public education system that continues to thrive and educate over 90% of our children, that is excellent. If it's one of our public charter schools that have over 50,000 children now attending around the state, that's great. If that works for you, if it's a private school, which we have um, over 50,000 kids participating in our choice scholarship program, but another 80 to 90,000 kids that are actually part of the non-public education sector. And so there's homeschooling, which we don't have a lot of numbers on, but we believe there's somewhere around 5 to 10% of the children. Indiana educates 1.2 million kids daily, Eve, and the state spends over $9 billion a year in K through 12 education alone. So Indiana makes a significant investment in education. But as I like to look at it, it makes a significant investment in families.
Right, right. No, and I am, as you know, Cesar, I have been a parent of school choice since becoming a parent. I was part of the public school sector when I was growing up until high school. Then that was a private school, parochial, and that cost me money. So now, in knowing that there's been vouchers out here since the early 2000s or something like that.
Mid 2000, like
Mhm.
2011 was when the program was created, right? So 12 plus years now. But you're right. Prior to these programs being created, and Indiana has three programs that assist families in being able to pay tuition and fees for a non-public school. Since the creation of these programs, right, we've seen a significant amount of families wanting and making that school choice. And so we're happy to continue to support programs like the Indiana Choice Scholarship Program, known as the voucher, the tax scholarship program, which is a tax break on a donation that goes to a school. And then also, Indiana just created an education scholarship account, which is also for our special needs community. So we're happy again whenever there's options and choices for families, and then also vehicles to be able to access these programs. We think that's a win-win for families.
It is a win-win. Now, I have gotten, you know, I know a lot of people in the legislation, especially here in the Northwest Indiana, they're mostly Democrats. And of course, I'm getting these emails and I'm confronted with other school board members that are from the public schools. But, there's a lot of misconception, misinformation about what is a public school. Can you kind of educate our audience a little bit about that, and then we're going to get into the funding.
Yeah, no. So we have our traditional public schools, right, which is your neighborhood schools, also known as, right. But in Indiana, we also have public charter schools. Public charter schools are public schools that are open to all. Now, the difference between a traditional public school and a charter school is some of the funding. There is a difference. Our traditional public schools still get local property taxes where our charter schools do not. And then our charter schools are actually ran by non for profit organizations, which means that they have a local board or a school board
Hmm.
that authorizes and does all things charter school related or for that school related. And so in Indiana, we have there's been a misconception, I think, for a long time that charter schools are private schools or that there's tuition and fees that are attached to attending these schools. There is not. These are free public schools, just as our traditional neighborhood schools are. So there's also a misconception that these schools sort of pick and choose students. And I will say this: my children attend a public charter school, and as a parent, when I enlisted them at the school, I did have to go through a lottery system, but that was simply because of the demand that was on the school. But if there is no high demand, they're open to everybody. And so I think that that's the misconceptions about charter schools and people accessing them. But as a public charter school parent, I don't pay any additional fees to send my children there. My tax dollars, my property taxes, that everything pays and helps pay for that, just as it does for my traditional public school.
Right, which I believe from what I'm hearing, that's the problem. That I don't want to cause division, people, but I'm seeing that those that believe that charter schools are not public are causing division, if you will. That the money that is being pulled from the taxes is going to these charter schools. Some are saying they're not public schools. Of course, as you know, I'm a school board member to a charter school, right? And I took my kids in elementary to a private school, but it cost me, there was no vouchers back then. Okay. And so as a parent, I'm going to look at what's best for my child. Now, I'm hearing from others that charter schools are closing left and right. Well, so are public schools. Indianapolis is about to close three next year. Three, I don't know if they're high schools or not. I think I read somewhere. So, how do we remedy this? How do we fix this? I'm actually applauding. See, I'm representing, right? My school choice, your shirt,
Well,
Cesar.
I think that one of the biggest misconceptions that there is out there is that Indiana funds public school districts, where that is not the case. Indiana funds students, and by that I mean that under Indiana law, education dollars that the state allots to each individual student are actually go directly in the individual school's name, not to the school building or school district, right? So um, a public charter student simply is using their state tuition dollars and applying those to a public charter school. And so when you talk about funding, when you talk about monies, I think that the biggest misconception that I find around the state, Eve, is that folks believe that money that the state legislature biannually attaches to education, or funds for education, is actually attached to the name of the student, right? So each of our students has a student ID number, if you will, and the monies follow that student, and therefore uh, do not um, belong to the school district, or do not go directly to the school district or to the school building. They are in the child's name, and so if a child or a family chooses a public charter school, or in Indiana a non-public school, they can use some of those dollars, right? And then that's when we get into the tax scholarship program, the ESA program, and those sorts of programs that are used for tuition and fees at a public schools. But those are simply state tuition dollars that are allotted, and they're allotted to the individual school name, to the individual kid's name. Now, the difference is, right, with our voucher program, is that the state allows families and students to use that state tuition dollars to pay for tuition and fees at a private school. And so that's the difference. But in Indiana, we fund students. We don't fund school districts or school buildings.
That's what I'm talking about. And, and the argument was, well, are you saying this is to the people that are upset because this money went to charter schools, or their public schools, right, into vouchers? Are you upset then? So are you saying that we take the kids, we as in going into a charter school, and you keep the money? Does that make sense?
Well, I think that again, the money follows the student,
It
and
should.
so yeah, and when we talk about where the monies and funding goes to, just for instance, so our choice scholarship program, which is known as the voucher program, only gives families 90% of the state tuition dollars. It's not the full 100%, right? And so the public school districts, the Indiana General Funds, still receive some of those dollars back. And so I think that when you think about how, again, because money follows the student in the state of Indiana, I look at it as when a parent chooses to go to a private school and doesn't get any support, they're sort of double being taxed on it, because they're still having to pay for your local property taxes, your local taxes to support education, but you're not able to use those dollars to, and then being able to apply them, but yet you're still having to pay tuition and fees for a private school. So I feel that there's a lot of families that have long been double taxed, if you will, right, by not being able to use those state tuition dollars and apply them to the school of their choice. And so under these school choice programs in Indiana, that's what it does. It allows you to take those dollars that are allotted in that child's name and then apply them to a non-public school of your choice, as long as the school is an accredited school and a participating school as well.
Right, right. And so how can we make peace with those that are against? And I'm thinking, well, let me go back and find out where these legislators have actually been putting their kids in. What school are they in? Now they're probably saying, well, we're paying for their tuition, right? In some cases. And I'm not throwing any names out, but it's just so that we can have the happy medium. And you just said something important, Cesar. You just said, I'm still paying taxes.
Right. And
So,
I think that that's the thing, is that Indiana gives us a lot of flexibility in education, as our legislators, our families, um, we're all making the best school choice and option for our children, right? And so wherever that choice and option is, what we feel is that we support that, and we support families, we support communities, we support strong education in our communities. I think that the state of Indiana makes a significant investment, as I mentioned, $9 billion per year go to fund education, K through 12 education. That's not even going post secondary. That's not even going into adult education, right? We're talking strictly K through 12 education. So the way I look at it, Eve, is that there's a lot of investment in education, but there's also a lot of people that weigh in on decision making when it comes to where those dollars go, how those dollars are used, right? A lot of times, except families, and so we support the family. We seek to empower families to be involved in education, to have a voice, to have a say so, right? Not only on your with your child or at your school, but we're also talking about at your local school board level, at your local municipal level, or even down to our Indiana State House, which is the work that the Institute for Quality Education really focuses on. Right, is more on the policy, the work and happenings at the legislature during the Indiana State House sessions, and so we want to continue to support families because we feel that there's still a lot of families, Eve, that just don't know that programs are available and how to use them.
And that is the information that we need to bring out. So by having more money now placed into the non-traditional public schools, does that mean that because they're not liking that this happened, does that mean that there's less money going into the public schools?
No, no. Actually, there was an increase in dollars that will be going into public education, and there's a formula that they're sort of running where there will be an increase to all education in general. Indiana has made yet another significant investment in general education. I think we increased it by $1 or $2 billion over the next 2 years. So that goes to all forms of education. So there's been an increase. There will also be an increase in per pupil funding. There's also an increase in special education funding. There's also an increase in ELL funding. The state of Indiana continues to invest heavily in education, in the future of our children, right? When you think about the fact that there's 1.2 million kids that go to school daily, Eve, we have around 900,000 of those children that still attend our traditional public school. So when we talk about folks using other options or making other choices outside of our traditional public school district, it's still significant amount. It's still a small significant amount compared to the amount of children that go to school every day, right? And then also, when we talk about school choice, I think the biggest misconception is also folks often just think about school choice as going to a private school. But the number one form of school choice in Indiana is what we call public to public transfer. Let me explain that a little bit. What that is that a student can go to another public school district outside of their own public school district, right? And we find that that's the number one way in which families in Indiana use school choice. So in Indiana, we have over 83,000 kids that go to a public school district that's not their own, right? So that's called public to public transfer, and that is the biggest form of school choice in Indiana, right? And so our public school districts continue to benefit off those dollars, right? Continue to be funded through those students attending their schools, right? What we advocate for at the Institute for Quality Education is the other students, the other families that need another option or choice, where maybe our traditional public school district, for some reason or another, is just not working for your family, for your child. And so you seek other options and choices. And so, again, to our mission and vision, Eve, we seek a world where there's a lot of options available to meet the unique needs of our children, so that they are given the very best possible education available, and then they have all the tools to go out into the world, succeed, and become productive residents and citizens of our communities, right? That's exactly why the state of Indiana invests so heavily in our children is because we need that next generation of workforce. We need those next generation of leaders. We need folks that are going to be able to be positive contributors to our community. And so education is one of those vehicles that Indiana uses, and that all states use, but Indiana, right, makes a significant investment in education, in the next generation of children. And so empowering families to understand how to use school choice to best fit their needs is the work that we do. Again, understanding that in Indiana, we fund students, we don't fund schools or school districts.
Exactly. And I'm reading the article that came, and the way they have it, the headline can be misconceived, misrepresented. Indiana taxpayers will send millions more to charter schools in new state budget. The non-traditional public schools will see increase per student. Yay. You know how much more we can do for our kids that we have at our school at E.V.E Leadership Academy, and not have to fight so much to get more grants to be able to give them the best that they need. The
Yeah,
non-traditional
well,
public schools increase per student funding and gain access to local property taxes. Well, it's somebody's child and their parents are paying local taxes. Hello.
yeah, and it's still not fully sort of equitable yet in that, right? There was a significant, what we feel, a win for charter school families. And again, there's 50,000 plus students that attend our charter schools around the state, right? And so when you talk about 1.2 million kids, very small amount, right? But what we fight for is equity. And we want to make sure that all kids receive access to the same type of quality education as all others can and should. And so what we were really hoping and pushing for during this past legislative session was equity in funding for our charter school students, which again they're public students, public school students, but under the way that the funding has been, they don't receive the same amount of dollars as our neighborhood schools. And so there, depending on your community, Eve, there could be a gap of between $4,000 to $7,000 per student, which, to your point, that's significant when we talk about our charter schools, because a lot of time folks think that charter schools are money making operations, right? But one, they're non for profits, and two, they're usually small or independent run schools that they don't have mega resources. They don't have access to referendums. They don't have access to just be able to tap or ask for additional resources. As you know, as a board member, there's often this real struggle to find dollars to keep resources in the building, to educate students in a very real way. I think that when we think about education, there's always this misconception that somebody's out there getting rich on the back of kids and students, but in reality, I think the fact that families choose and those dollars follow the student then really says that if they're choosing to go to the public charter school, that's the option and choice that works best for them. And I think we should applaud them for making a choice and option. As you mentioned earlier, Eve, those of us that can make a choice and option often do. But we should make this available to everybody. And Indiana, this past legislative session has really made significant strides and gains when it comes to equity and education for all. We are once again a leader in education, K through 12 education around the nation. Eve, Indiana has the most robust options and choices for families available across the nation. And what we find is that families continue to not be aware of programs or not be aware of how to use school choice. And then how to access these programs, right? And so a lot of the work that we do, Eve, centers around that.
So how do we access this fund? We have to let families know you've always had a choice. First of all, you become a parent, you choose what you want, what's best for your student. I, as a board member from a charter school, I will also fight for their students if they choose to go to our school for what's best for them. So knowing that we're going to get additional dollars means we can get better programs. Now, the fact that people have been saying that there's a lot of charter schools that are not quality of education and that have been closing left and right, I can say the same thing about public schools. Just because we have charter schools does not take away the quality of a traditional public school. If you're lacking quality of education, that is your issue, not the fact that we have charter schools. We're not taking away your quality of education. We're just
Yeah.
trying to do what's best for the students and the parents that have choices. Everybody has a choice.
Absolutely, and it's Indiana, right? Again, the dollars follow the students. They don't go directly to the school district or a school building, and so I think we should empower families to understand how to really use this vehicle of education and all the wonderful things that Indiana offers us, so that we can prepare our babies to be whoever they want to become, right? And realize their dreams. Ultimately, I think that's what the parents, as a parent of five, Eve, right? I want the very best for my child, and I think we all do, right? And education is one of those fundamental bases in life that we give our children. And so, being empowered in that conversation, using this tool to maximize that baby's future. That's that's ultimately what we can do, and so being involved in education is often difficult and complicated and messy. And as we mentioned, Eve, there's billions of dollars, and so there's a lot of people weighing in. And so, as families, we often feel that we don't have a voice, or that we should just take what's given to us, right?
Right. Exactly.
No. It's a must that we advocate. It's a must that we get involved. It's a must that we partake in our children's education to make sure that our babies realize their dreams. And so that's ultimately, I think, what is happening with school choice in Indiana. We are really allowing families to be empowered, to be involved in education, and giving them that menu of options and choices to really be able to fit the unique needs of their children. Right, education and children look a lot different than they did in my time, Eve. And so, but I'm okay with understanding that my children will need different tools going into the future. It will be a different world, and so my job as a parent is to build those bases and give them a strong foundation, so when they go out into the world, they can compete with others, right? And they can succeed. And so that's what we're really fighting for. I like to always say the rest of the stuff is adult conversations.
For sure. And so, how do we get access to these monies? How do we let families know that they too have choices? Where do they need to go?
Yeah. Yeah, so I definitely invite families to visit our website at myschooloptions.org. That's myschooloptions.org. We're getting ready to upgrade our website, Eve. So it will be under construction over the next several weeks. We hope to really be able to give families more tools and resources on our website. But one of the great things on that website is a school finder. You can put your address, and it will give you all school types: public charter, private schools, and it will also explain to you the type of programs that they participate in, the choice programs that may be available at that school to help you pay for tuition and fees if that's applicable. So visit our site at myschooloptions.org. Go to our school finder, see what's available in your area. If you're happy with where your student is currently at, that's awesome. That's great. But if you're looking for something else, that might give you a vehicle for you to begin your journey on making an education choice and option that works for your kid.
Wow, that's great. And I'm glad that you were able to come on and kind of like explain things, because we're not politicians. you or I, but we're about education, the quality of education, right? And
Hmm.
not to say that all charter schools are awesome and all public schools are awesome. No, you got to pick and choose what's best for your child. Ultimately, it's all about your child.
That's it.
Point blank.
It's it, right? And absolutely, we need our babies to be able to go on into the world to compete in what is really it's a worldwide competition, right? And so they have to be able to succeed in a very competitive world. And so we got to prepare them, and education is the perfect vehicle for us to make sure that they're ready to succeed.
That's right. Any last thing, last 30 seconds? I'm gonna give you next 30 seconds. Anything else? We've covered a lot in just 30 minutes and information
Yeah,
that's so
no, thank
needed.
you. Thank you. No, so if you're looking for events in your area, I encourage you to visit our myschooloptions.org Facebook page. We will be having a listing of all our events coming up uh, and happenings in throughout the state. We're also having a Rock the Block Day coming up with our friends at Ascension Lutheran in Gary, Indiana on May the 25th. So I invite you to come on out. Eve, if I can send you that invite and you
Yes,
can
please.
invite your families in the community in Northwest Indiana. We will be doing a celebration of families and a showcase of a wonderful gem in the community and folks that really care about educating babies in the city of Gary. And so we are excited to co-host this event with the folks at Ascension Lutheran for our Rock the Block celebration.
All right. Well, hopefully we can do a rock the block at our charter school. We'll see. We'll talk off the air. Thank
Yeah,
you, Cesar. We have so much work to do still, all for our students, for our kids, for your kids, parents. Know that we're here to fight the fight, to bring the quality of education to your home. And what I mean home is your children bringing it to you as well. So, Cesar, thank you so much for all that you do, for being a great advocate for school choice. And we'll continue this conversation later. Thank you.
thanks, Eve. Thank you.
You're
Bye
welcome.
bye.
Yeah. Well, you guys heard it. I'm all about school choice. I'm all about the quality of education and the quality of life. More does not mean better. We just have to do what's right for our students. At the end of the day, it's about our kids. And with that, guys, I do have to go. I got places to go, people to see, and things to do as always. Thank you for joining me here, Real Talk with E.V.E. on some Lunch and Learn. I hope that you've got some nuggets out of this. And I'm here to love all of you. So don't take me personally as far as judging me. Okay. So on that, love you guys. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time.